Welcome to the Snap Audition Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and leave a 5-star review.
And check out the Snap Audition platform at snapaudition.com.
We're here with Chris Green, veteran band director, and also at this point works with Frauhof uniforms. Is that right?
Frauhof uniforms.
Frauhof. You just told me what it is, and I didn't remember. Frauhof uniforms, and also Guard Closet. Mm-hmm. Right now, you're in Wichita, Kansas.
Yes.
Tell us about you, where you live, what are you doing?
Well, I live part-time in Wichita, Kansas, and full-time in St. Petersburg, Florida. Mm-hmm. My degree's in music composition. I was the Mr. Holland's Opus kind of came out when I was in college. I was a composition major that was never going to teach. Yeah. So I followed the same kind of path and became a teacher. I did that for about a decade in Texas. Had a great career, really loved it.
Yeah.
Moved to Florida about 8 years ago to be the Florida representative for Frauhof uniforms. How much I enjoy being a deconstructed band director. So I got to talk to band directors all day. I was spending my time in the performing arts and just traveling the state. And then I added on other lines to that to kind of help the bands. So I'm working with Guard Closet, which does all my marching band and color guard accessories and concert wear, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of goes along with the same things I'm talking to the band directors about. I've been working with a company called Team IP, which does all my branded apparel and promotional products.
Okay.
And Team IP has actually contracted me as the virtual assistant director to handle all their music and education stuff. I've been doing that by myself for the last 7 or 8 years, and then taking over the position as the national sales manager for Frauhof. I needed some assistance, and we've been growing so much. So I actually have about 7 other virtual assistant directors that work with me, and we just basically help bands through all the things that they don't have enough hands to do. The name kind of started because in Florida, I realized very quickly that the very few of the bands had an assistant director of any kind. Where I came from Texas, where it was defined, you have a certain number of students, you have a certain number of directors.
Right. I grew up in San Antonio. Churchill High School. You probably heard of it.
Definitely.
Decades ago, and I think we went up to like 4 directors. It was pretty luxurious for the in the director world.
Well, it helps. There's so much paperwork. There's so much research going on. So for me, I was like, how can I help? I can't come and teach the class. I can't do those things. But can I do the research and where are we going to get our props from? I need shoes. I need gloves. And who's got color guard stuff? I've got a cloth with. What do I need to do and how? So that's where I kind of stepped in and said, I could be like a virtual assistant. And then someone I used to work with, he used a line once that said, life is better with an assistant. And I said, I'm going to steal that line because that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I can't do a lot of the things, but I can take various pieces and give you all the information that you did. Let me do the research. Let me tell you, who has what are those prices, what are those terms, what can I do to help the program?
It seems like at least half of their job is really directing the program as much as it is dealing with music itself, or even the students. There's so much, the amount of logistics is crazy. So especially in the marching band world, it's, you're putting on a full on like theater production on a football field and traveling around. Where were you in Texas? I'm curious.
I was in the Dallas metro area. I taught at a school, Adamson High School. I got there and they had 12 kids in the program. I left them with about 250. We went from, everyone was in band and jazz band to having multiple jazz bands, 3 concert bands, 2 competing winter guards, WGI winds, and indoor percussion. So it's just, I was able to grow that program and then hand it over to someone else after I left, and they're doing different things. But everyone has their own viewpoint of what the band should be.
Of course.
For me, I just follow a 100-year-old school with such a low population band, but a lot of great names had come out of that program. I wanted more kids to have the band experience. To me, it wasn't about, I have to get straight ones. I'm in Texas. It was more of, okay, can I get the experience for more kids to enjoy what it's like to be in band? Give them more performing opportunities. Most of my students were beginners and freshmen in high school. So for them to take 3 or 4 years and get to a certain performance level took a lot of extra effort. We didn't have lessons. So it's like, okay, let's do more ensembles. So an ensemble and small groups and just varying kinds of things. And so you have a certain number of groups of students that grow in the group. They just go up to the top level. They become in the wind ensemble and they can achieve a higher level of music. are trying really hard, but they're behind the eight ball. They haven't had 3 or 4 years of music going in, so they're hard workers, but they can achieve this level of music. And then people who are more beginning and need more time, well, they can achieve this level of music. And then
Right.
you find them together in the marching band by just being layered in how your approach is, so that everyone has something that they can achieve and can perform
Yeah.
together in a great way. So I that was my approach, and I really enjoyed it.
I'm curious how you deal with encouraging the people or the students that are there to get better, to when you also the big objective is just to get more people in the program, right? So
Mhm.
you got quantity versus quality. How do you balance those things when you're building?
I think that's a really
Yeah.
good way to look at that, as quality versus
Yeah.
quantity. A lot of people say, well, this small group, I can really focus and they'll get really high attention and will
Hmm.
perform well. On a place like Texas, where your scores are very much assigned to how well you're being paid, or if you have a contract again, you have to understand what that is going to be.
Hmm.
Because you can't go in and say, I'm going to fill the band big with numbers, because if you have to have that score by the end of the first year,
Yeah.
recruit the kid the same way, because you have to have results. If you're in an area where you don't have to have that tied in, you can look at it differently. So step one for me has always been, with any program I've done, whether it's been a nonprofit or a school, is identifying where the school is and where it is, why it's there. So if the school has been there simply just, oh, we dumped some kids in band, it's not been serious, or it's super competitive, whatever, you have to understand what that goal currently is,
Right.
then start growing the community and the culture of what you want the band to be. So for me, that first year with having 12, I knew very importantly that they had to have a jazz band. Most of the kids were doubling on other instruments, and that was great. And they had a very successful jazz band.
Huh.
The concert band was okay, and they kept going in the non-varsity, so we were able to keep the level down of what they had to achieve.
Yeah.
Uh, every time they get up to a level where they're getting ones, they had to move it to varsity, and they had a huge drop the next year because they didn't have the development and the number of students to maintain that level. So
Okay.
they're shooting themselves in the foot. We got good enough. Oh, now we got to start over because now it's a much higher level. We don't have the talent. They'll get a 2 or 3, go back down to non-varsity and build themselves back up. It was a constant cycle. So they started focusing on things like jazz band to do. So when I came in, I was like, okay, well, where can we get more kids? How do we do this? So I took these music history classes that were dumping just everyone in. Started doing more
So
uh,
they had music history class in
in high
school as like an arts credit kind of thing.
right, and then just
Okay.
dump the kids in that need to be in. So we had to find a way to talk about performing arts and show videos and just try to develop the culture of what things could be. And you start
Hmm.
getting kids asking questions and they find interest in something. So we started in the spring. It's like, well, I've got all this extra money for buses because this band is so
Hmm.
small, we're not using them in the football season. So we went
Hmm.
to a couple of contests where they saw bands that weren't like them. So, hey, there's a free trip. We're going to go
Uh-huh.
see marching band contest, 4 hours. We'll go someplace cool to eat. We did the same thing with Winter Guard and indoor percussion. Let's just go. Hey, guys, here's a video of what's going on. If you want a trip, this is how much it costs and go. And I always had
Yeah.
about 15, 16 kids that want to go because it would be the band kids would definitely want to go. And then a few of the kids from the music history class. Oh, that'd be kind of fun to go. Cool.
Hmm.
We go like, this is really cool. How do they do this? Then we have a conversation of, well, this is what they do, and they have this kind of rehearsal. And so I started
Yeah.
just getting them experiencing different levels of band than what they currently have. And they would ask questions of how can we do this? How is this possible? Well, this is what it would take. And so it would just be little discussions here and there, developing what was happening. So after that first year, I had the beginning class starting up.
Okay.
Well,
Oh,
there's a lot
yeah.
of interest. There's a lot of, 30, 40 kids that wanted to be in beginning band in high school. Great. Cool.
Oh, wow. Begin new musicians in high school. Okay. Right.
By the time I was at my third year there, we had 75 kids every year in beginning band as a
Yeah.
freshman. Now, second semester of their freshman year, they may be good enough to get into the bottom band
Yeah.
because we're playing, easier literature. And some like, well, I can go in and do that. Great. Some of them they skipped second or second, their second or third year of middle school band because They didn't like it. They didn't like their band director. They moved, whatever reason, and they got back
Hmm.
in. Like, well, you're still back in the beginning, and then I'm getting good again. I'm really enjoying this now. Great. Now you can move into the symphonic band. Oh, and after that year, everyone had auditioned for the wind ensemble, symphonic band, and concert band. So it gave them a chance to kind of figure out where to go. So as it slowly grew, I wasn't saying I want to have 50 kids this year and 100 kids next year. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of directors go in and say that. I'm expecting to be 150. Well, how do you mean do you have now? 20. Well, how are you going to get there? I'm
Yeah.
recruiting a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's that quality versus quantity.
You're
So
right.
by going through and developing the student themselves and why they want to be in band, why they
Right.
want the band experience, then figure out what that level is going to be. If your school is simply, hey, we have a band, and then they really enjoy playing for the basketball team. The basketball team here is huge. Great. Then create a stands pet band kind of group that plays for the basketball team.
You go in, you're like, in order to do anything where this students are going to be attracted to it, you're going to have a level of success or whatever. You got to have more people. Like, you just can't sustain it with there's a critical mass number you got to have. And so that was your first objective. It was like, hey, and then, but it sounds like you took a more organic approach of how do I get them to tell their peers to be in this, or
Yeah.
instead of just going out and saying it's a good idea. It's I don't know. Yeah. So
I mean, you've seen lots
yeah.
of recruitment booths where they'll put a trumpet and a flag and they'll have kids going, come join, it's so much
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And in some schools, that's all you need. That's
Uh-huh.
they need. They need to feel cool. But
Right.
every school has its own culture of what's cool. Where I found is there was a magnet middle school that was a performing arts middle school that used to feed the high school and didn't. So we had
Okay.
one school that fed us. That one school was giving us 5 or 6 kids a year. So instantly I'm like, well, you can't grow a program if you're only getting 5 or 6 kids from the middle school. I've got to do something different. And then we started performing at the elementary schools to help boost up the interest in the middle school to feed in. So you have to kind of humble yourself a little bit and say, okay, I've got to do beyond my job, because if it's not happening at the middle school level now, as a high school director, it's now my job to do so. And how can I encourage
Yes.
the middle school director to do different things? Because they will give you endless reasons of why it isn't happening. Well, kids don't want to do band. I got told that so many times. Kids here, they just don't want to do
Yeah.
band.
Right.
So we had an HBCU style school down the street. There's a magnet high school. That's the
Is it?
historically black colleges and that's a
Yeah.
very strong style. And then we had another
Yeah.
high school down the street that was in the same general area. They didn't have to pick between, but they were very good. So we have two strong programs in this style. And
Okay.
then the school I was at was a core style. So everyone wanted us to be like those two schools. And he kept saying, well, if they want to be that, they'll go right here. It's just down the street. Or they can get a waiver to go to this other school. So the reason they're coming here, they want to do something different. So once I changed that culture, like, okay, indoor winter garden and percussion, they like that. The band started growing. And then I'll say by the time I left the high school, I had moved my assistant from the high school to the middle school, took over the program. He went
Yeah.
from, giving 5 or 6 kids a year to having 97% of the middle school in band, and went
Wow.
from getting threes and fours at contests to getting sweepstakes and having multiple assistant directors. So
Yeah.
all these people say, "Oh, kid, they don't want to do this. You're misunderstanding. That's not what they want. That is what they wanted." But you had to create the culture and say, here are the options. And they'll tell you. If they go, that's stupid. Okay. What's stupid about it? What do you not like about it? Oh,
Yeah.
well, we're doing this cool. So I found the kind of balance I found is they liked the HBCU style, but they liked
Right.
going and doing something different than their neighbors were doing, as far as on the
Okay.
culture field. So like, hey, can we go in the stands? Can we play some cumbia? Can we do some dances? Can we do some cool stuff in the stands? Sure. Why
So
not?
you
They are
so
spirit.
the culture was the black style marching band. It's a different, yeah, like the historically black colleges, and so it would be natural for you or anybody else to think, oh, that's the style we should do because we're in that community. But
Well, I mean,
you
we
had
were
success doing something different, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we were about 97% Hispanic.
Oh,
And we had,
nice. So you're Hispanic. Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when I first came into the school and we had a Hispanic principal, we had
Okay.
there's a folklorico and mariachi groups at the school, and she ended it. She's like, "No, I don't like that. We don't. That's not what we're doing." I'm like, okay, well, I don't understand. If we have a lot of first and second generation immigrants from Mexico,
Right. Right.
do those things about their culture. No,
Right.
no, we're not doing it. You need to be like this school and this school. That's, the HBCU style. And you ask the kids what they like, and you show them videos. You don't have to tell them this is good and this is bad. You say, hey, let's watch a couple things. So here's a drum corps. Here's a Grambling University going stuff. Here's a military band,
Right.
like Texas has like a military. Let's just show different things, and let's analyze what it is you like and don't like about them. Well, this is cool because they got the crowd excited, or this is cool because I know this
Right.
song. This is cool because they're just really freaking good. You know,
Yeah.
you can challenge them to accept new experiences, because let's face it, we're all going in with tunnel vision of what we grew up with, what we're around, what our culture and
Oh
our
yeah.
community
Yeah.
is. Hey, so when in your middle school and high school and you're trying to find out who you're going to be as an adult, you you're experimenting, you're finding out different things, you're listening to different music, you're finding out what your friends listen to, what they like, and you're constantly trying to stay cool. So any culture can be cool if the kids are buying into it. But it can't be as the adult saying, this is what's cool, this is what we're doing. It's talking
Okay.
to the students and saying, hey, what do you like? Well, I like this. Well, what do you like about it? Well, number one, you're showing interest in the student, and every teacher is going to tell you the better that you can have a relationship with your student on a one-on-one basis that makes them feel heard, validated, and seen, which are things you hear all the time right now, is going to
Right.
be better for your program, because they're going to trust you with whatever you're saying. Hey, this is what we're going to do in class. Hey, this is the kind of music we're going to play. They're going to buy into it. I mean, I was
Right.
watching the other day for one of the top high school bands in the country, and they're talking about how much the kids were challenged and loving this Maslanka piece. I'm like, there's no way that 90% of the bands in the country could achieve this piece. And here's this video with all the kids talking about how much they enjoyed the process, and it was so much pressure because this. But it's because they developed that culture of they really wanted to play this really high art music at a high school level, and they
Hmm.
achieved it extremely well. Well, that's that culture there. And they built it for years and years. So if you're going to go to that high school, they've got these programs. Here's their successes. Here's what they're doing.
Your passion was the program itself and the community. And no matter what direction it went, you cared about the people. I know Texas marching band culture. I grew up in high school, and it's kind of like college, the high school football there in a lot of ways. So you have the more wealthy schools that have these big bands and these big traditions of programs. So if you're going to go into be a director of one of those programs, I assume you would know where you're inheriting a program. So,
Yeah.
but in your situation, you're saying I'm inheriting a challenge here to make a community. That's the thing that you needed to achieve there.
I mean,
Yeah.
my goal first and foremost was I wanted students to have the same impact on their life that I have with band. So as I'm growing the
Okay.
band, I get a lot of feedback of you're just trying to create a bunch of band directors. I'm like, not really. I mean, if they want to go into the field, that's awesome. But if they learn all the lessons from band that I learned and that gave me the confidence to go out and be the person that I am and do the things that I'm doing in the world, then that's a good thing.
Right.
Uh,
So you saw the program, the experience of the program in the high school as valuable
right. I
in and
mean,
of itself, besides just music education. It was a way to create leaders and things like that. Right.
and the
Yeah.
students in the program that have gone on to do music weren't
Yeah.
necessarily first chair people. They're people that
Hmm.
just found their home in music, and that's what gave them their life. And there's others that went through and got degrees in music and then took a different path, and they're highly successful in that new path. So I think we get into a lot of tunnel vision again of great program. We're going to have good music on stage, good music on the field, and this is what we're going to do. And realizing
Uh-huh.
that students are not going to continue music. You hope they do. You hope they
Continue
either
playing music. Right. Yeah.
right, you're
Yeah.
doing it professionally or in a community band, or you hope that music stays with them at some point. But I keep in touch with a lot of my former students and what they're doing now, and it's just they look back at those days of, that's when I really found that confidence. I was so shy then, and I really came out of my shell,
Okay.
or that's where I found my voice, or those different things, and it's amazing. Just going back and seeing the impact that had, and I knew from my time of how much music saved me in my life, I had a responsibility to do the same. I think it's selfish at
Okay.
this point to
Yeah.
go in and say, I'm here to get the trophy, and we need to get the trophies. That's cool. Trophies are great. I'm not going to diss trophies. I've had lots
Yeah.
of trophies and all that stuff in the band room. It's great for recruiting because success breeds success. All that stuff is
Right.
great. But at the end of the day, I just wanted the kids to be happy they were in the program, that they were
Hmm.
happy they joined band. They didn't regret the time they spent in any of the classrooms or ensembles that we were doing. What I kind of impart on people is if you're not in an area, Texas is hard because they really push the scores. And like you mentioned, if you're inheriting a program, there's definitely
Yeah.
responsibilities. And I'm not going to discount the fact that, you want to be as good as you possibly can. I always kept saying, it's more fun not to suck.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Who doesn't
well,
want to
this
stay
is
in innovation?
that's the way the struggle is as a musician is you're always practicing. You hear something you want to play, and then you can't play it. It's something you get. It's frustration comes from I don't have the skill to play this, and
Right.
so especially I'm a jazz background guy, so in the improv world, you're thinking I want to be able to do this lick or whatever, and I can't pull it off or it doesn't sound right, and it's but the more skill you have, the more fun it is, including with the band itself.
It was giving them the skills to say, hey, there's always going to be someone judging you. Always. Sometimes it's in our favor, sometimes it's not, but there's value in every criticism that you're going to get. So we kept going through different channels to hear that feedback, and we'd make them analyze. We'd write papers based on what the judges said. So we're listening in class, everyone's listening, you're taking your notes. Now, what are our takeaways? Well, they really hated this. Okay, well, we were not great at that day. What did they like? Why did they
Right.
like? What's the approach? And you mentioned
Yeah.
something about getting, playing and getting better,
Yeah.
the frustration, the skill. But let's face it, that one concept applies to everything you can do in life, work-wise, because you're going to get a job, you have a certain skill set. Then like, okay, we need to learn this other stuff. Well, I don't know that yet. Well, you better learn it because you need it for the
Yeah.
job.
That's totally, and especially today in we're an information economy. You're learning how to, well, and I do my other gig is software development. So in the tech world, it's all learning. Anybody who graduates from college computer science degree really doesn't know anything. So you have to. It's an economy of learning how to learn and learn. So you're
And
right, and music's great for that because it teaches you to break things up into chunks. You know.
Mhm. All
Yeah.
those skills, and that's what anytime people say, "Oh, you're taking the kid away from softball, and they're really good at soft." Okay, great. Team sports achieve some of the
Uh,
same ideas. All these
right.
things are good. That's why we put them in our schools because we say these are things that help develop the skills for a student. Just reading in a book doesn't necessarily give you all the skills. It's one skill set, which is why diversification of learning is so important because this is a visual learner, this is an audio learner, this is a person who needs to work in groups. This is someone that needs to do a presentation by themselves. And we constantly challenge our students to go through all these different learning aspects. Well, band does that nonstop. You have your
Yeah. Yeah.
individual
Yeah.
responsibility, your section responsibility, your overall. Maybe you're a leader in the band. Maybe you've got, four different ensembles that you're playing in. There's different things you've got to learn and practice and balance everything else in life. Well, that's a skill set you have to have no matter what your career is. So putting it in the band program, it's extremely important. So
Yeah.
I can tell you the number of students that came and said, that's the only reason why I came to school was because of band. I'm like, well, yeah, but now you're doing admissions at a college. Yeah. And you didn't think you're going to graduate high school. No. Okay. Because they did band,
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
things. So, I mean, we always talk about how great it is for every kid to have some kind of music or performing arts experience and all that. But sometimes it's hard to go back and look and say, all the things that they actually achieved that weren't a trophy or a score. So going back to your first comment about quality versus quantity, that
Yeah.
is a huge thing, and a lot of directors I think would choose quality first, and that's fine. I'm not discounting that at all, but I'm saying that sometimes you need to think outside that box, get off the ego a
Right.
little bit of what you think, because yeah, that's my name of the program. Well, they got a bad score, but you have no idea how far they came. At the beginning of the year, we couldn't play any of this. And yeah, it wasn't great today, but from where they were, it was amazing. Even though
And
that quality that I'm looking for, well, I don't want people
yeah.
to hear that. That's me. I shared it all the time.
Well, just having a reason to want to get up and go to school, things like being part of your band was probably a relief to a lot of these kids. We're at Snap, we do audition software. So we're, always like to ask people about auditions. But in what I've been learning is in school programs, how people assess students
Mhm.
varies a lot. What was your general rule, like general thing you did with assessment? How did you assess them? How did you have auditions? Did you place them?
We did. There's nothing beats being able to listen to a student live, one on
Yeah.
one, but there's pressure with that. So we had smart music programs. We had some practice rooms set up. They could go through it and record. So every level of
Okay.
band had something. So they got used to going to a program, playing along with it, and getting their scores and recordings. And sometimes they're able to redo them. Sometimes it was a sight
Hmm.
reading, like you only get a chance to do this one time. So what I thought was important, we were talking about auditioning, it's the same thing as going in for an interview. You don't have a second chance sometimes. Other times you've got two or three interviews to kind of get your point across and meet different people. So I think the audition process in itself, regardless of
Yeah.
how it's structured, is quite important because you have to get the student comfortable with presenting who they are, whether it's through their
Right.
instrument or them as a person. So sometimes, that instrument may be the thing that gives them the confidence to express themselves. Well, great. By going through that process a lot in your auditions in high school, regardless if they're going to the music or not, develop some of those skills. So they'll say, I felt more comfortable going in because, I remember having to go after first chair and I had to play in front of the whole band for the solo or all
Right.
those aspects that you've done. So I know with Snap with the audition situation,
Yeah.
I used in person. I brought in other people sometimes as a panel.
How did you balance the time then to do these auditions?
It's tough because as your
Mm.
band gets larger, there's less time to do so. So the auditions became more of leadership are always in person because they had to do interviews and physical auditions if it's a drum major or something of that nature. When it came to auditions for wind ensemble and symphonic band, concert band, those were all done digitally. You have time. Hey, the auditions are
Yeah.
open now. Here's the packet. You have until this date. And if you don't have that date, then you get placed in the concert band beyond the lowest score person. And they would have to,
So
re-audition later.
yeah. So I mean, it sounds like from the beginning, your mentality was we're gonna do auditions. Like,
Mhm.
because I talked to the directors from all over the country, and everybody just has a totally different situation. I think each state, things tend to be organized by state, and each state has a different culture expectation. And so in
Mhm.
your world, it was, oh yeah, this is what we do. We have auditions, right? For the
Yeah,
end of the year, for the next year.
right.
How else did you assess like personal development of their playing? I mean, chair tests, anything like that, like during the year?
We did. So every 6 weeks, there's a chair placement.
Oh,
Now,
wow. Oh,
depending on the part of the season because we're going into UL contest. I don't want someone moving from first chair to last chair because they're not practicing, and I need them on that first part. So there's a little more consideration on timing as to what I need for the band overall. So you have to keep the big picture in mind when it's coming to concert stuff. It's like, hey, in wind ensemble, you need to be able to play all your stuff all the time. So once you make wind ensemble, you're in wind ensemble for the year unless you have a disciplinary issue. Every 6 weeks they're going in for their playing test. They're always assigned to their parts there. Now for symphonic band, it's a little different. It's like, hey, here's the chair placement, and then every 6 weeks they're able to challenge. Well, if they challenge somebody, like, oh, you're challenged, okay, here, you go in here and the score is this. Okay.
right,
It means now you're this chair, you moved up and everyone else moves down. Oh, wait, but I didn't audition. Yeah, but fourth chair challenged second chair. It's now their second's third, third is fourth. Well, I just got
whoa,
bumped my part and I didn't do it. That's how it works. There's only three on first. Well, I want to challenge. Okay, next time you can challenge. And so that created the culture of, well, now I want to practice. I want to get better at my audition, or that person, they can't beat me. Well, they practiced the audition music. You did not, but I'm a better
right.
player. Doesn't matter. They were better prepared at that day, that moment in time. So how can you beat them now? Well, I have to go in and the next opportunity, you're going to have to sit with it for a while, but your next opportunity, you can go in with
Right.
the package and go.
All I can remember is middle school, and like we had to play something during the class. So is that the way you did it? You'd have just go person by person, or did you call them into your office, or
A lot of the times we did them on smart music
so you had
because
them record something? Yeah, it's
so I
faster.
recorded it because goes right in, it's playing along with it. I have the recording, I make them say their name so I know it's them playing. It goes through, it gives them an accuracy thing. But the other thing about that, I could listen to those recordings on my way home. So like, okay, well, your score on the technical aspect,
Yes.
8%. great. I'm going back home like, oh, tone, ooh, we're having some issues, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I can get feedback. So I get feedback on the way home and, stop at a stoplight. Like,
Right.
hey, I just listen to your recording. Make sure you take a bigger breath at the beginning and then make sure
Yeah.
we get the whole phrase, whatever little tidbits I could do real quick. Or say, come in. I want you to come play this for me again.
You got to use the tool or utilize the tools that are there because this is the world we live in. It sounds like too, even you started so small, but you didn't sacrifice your standards. And but actually you use the competition part of it, compete, students competing for spots and things like that to inspire them to get better. So the quality of the program got better and then blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I'll see programs where they'll make it a big tent thing
Mhm.
and just try to get a lot of people in, but then there's not really a focus on quality because maybe they're afraid that the kids will quit because it's too hard
Oh,
or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
completely. And those kids that quit, like
Yeah.
I had top kids quit. My entire idea, like I said from the beginning, was just I wanted them to have the band experience. I wanted them to leave and be happy that they did
Right.
it.
Yeah,
Not
which included, it didn't just include being part of a club. It was actually hard work to contribute to the overall cause and to your personal development as playing an instrument. And yeah,
completely.
yeah. And so I noticed that you had some DC drum corps experience. Is that right?
I've done a lot of drum corps. Drum
Yeah,
corps is kind of what
yeah,
kind of helped me find myself because I mean, and be honest, I was like seventh chair to 12 my freshman year in high school. And
yeah.
then I got into Crown and Carolina Crown and was a second soprano.
Carolina Crown, the DC Drum Corps International,
Yeah.
Carolina. Yeah, I've seen I think YouTube videos and stuff of them. Yeah,
So I
yeah.
did that for 4 seasons, and it took me
Uh,
from, my freshman year was middle of the pack in my high school trumpet line to making all region, all national, and
mm,
all national things, and got to tour Europe with a group, and
well,
I found myself in it because I wasn't one of those naturally talented kids. I was someone that had to work at it. So I think because I came from that world, that was where my concept came in was just, hey, you may be last year right now, but you could be a soloist next year. And I saw it in Crown all the time. A kid would come in as
mhm,
a fluting player and
yeah,
barely make a sound on the brass instrument. The next year or two, they are the soloist.
yeah,
The amount of growth that you could happen in a season with drum corps was just incredible.
yeah. And I'll get into the judging, because of course it's not the judging part is a big part of our software and designing that. We've learned how much variety there is. I mean, you have contest, which would be like the marching band thing. I remember the guys walking around on the football field with the tape recorders
Mhm.
recording. And so you were one of these people, and
Yep. I
and
still
then
am. It's
yeah,
this
and
now.
then oh, it's so fun. Yeah, it's phone now. And then you had those contests with groups, and then you have the individual contests or auditions, etc. What are have you had bad experiences with judging where like it wasn't set up correctly, or it's you come in and you don't really know what to do?
There's always a situation that kind of trips you, whether it's the
Yeah,
show organization or the bands. I mean, the thing you always try to do is you're always trying to find the positive. You're always trying to figure out to give them credit for the things they are achieving.
yeah,
Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes the directors have set the students up in a way that just it's not working, and you're not.
yeah.
It's not. Maybe it's not even salvageable. It's like the music is way too hard, drills way too hard.
Hmm.
They didn't understand their students. Maybe they designed it for students they had as opposed to the ones they have. Um, maybe
But your
they
job is in that as a like if you're judging a marching band thing, you're either on the field walking around or you're in the press box.
right.
And then are you yeah, I'm trying to remember how it works because you're assigned a certain part of the show or not part, but
Right.
like element,
A different
right?
caption kind of thing, whether it's
Yeah.
general effects or a performance or an ensemble kind of caption. But so
Okay.
you're kind of staying in your lane and giving advice, but it's reactionary. You've not seen the show, so you're listening and you're trying to appreciate, and you're trying not to say, well, what I would do is this. It's more of, okay, I see what you're trying to do here. Let's give a
Okay.
little more, if you give more emphasis to this, that'll help what you're trying to do communicate better. Or hey, we're having some timing issues. What I'm hearing in the timing from up here is that the percussion is not lining up with the drum major, and we've got students on side B that are a little bit behind the beat. you're trying to analyze it as we're going and just trying to make sure that they're hearing it because you have no idea their situation. They may be one band person, they maybe not never get on the field, they may not have a box, they may not be in a stadium except for at a contest date. So the
Okay.
sound they've been doing in that band room all the time sound great, and then a new environment, it's not translating as well. So you're trying to
Yeah.
impart the advice of what you've experienced
Right.
with them that one day and applying it to what you think it might be happening. And thankfully, a lot of these programs will all have shows will have uh, a feedback session, like a critique or a talk back. And I'll say, hey, listen to your tape. I heard this. I wasn't understanding what this meant, or let me explain to you what's going on. Well, that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, well, that makes sense. So with that being said, this is how I would
Huh.
address that differently, or this is how I would say, you're doing the best you can in the situation, or some advice of something they may want to try.
But you're already like you're creating it. You're giving a numeric score too to
Mhm.
whatever elements. Is there a pretty standard way of doing it in the marching band world?
Well, it depends on circuit. I mean, circuits have their own standard ways. There's a lot of independent
Oh,
shows. Either say we borrow against BOA or UIL or US bands or TAB. We're borrowing against that, or we're using this judging association, so we know that this is the critique criteria. So it just depends. I mean, with Texas, if you do US bands, UIL, and BOA, all three are major things. They all have their own unique concept of what they value as most important on their
okay.
scales and their rewards. But then there's also independent shows, and some of them say, "Hey, we don't follow UIL. It's really a showcase, or
Okay.
it's a crowd interaction, or we're really focusing on what the students are performing quality wise, not what the designers have designed for them to perform. So it just depends. So
Okay. So you, as a judge, of course, you gotta know that going in,
right.
and then they have to do a good job of explaining that to you. Do you ever show up like to judge and then late like halfway through the judging you're like, oh, this is what I was supposed to be doing. No.
Oh no, me never, ever.
Yeah.
I've been judging for 25 years now. Uh,
Wow. Yeah.
so in the first couple shows, I was more nervous, but I think because I wanted to do such a good job that I asked endless questions of everybody, and I would check in after a score. I'm like, hey, this is where I'm thinking. Is this
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
reassure? Like, I want to make sure that I'm not doing a disservice to the students just because I'm new. And then I've been a mentor teacher and a mentor judge before as well. And that's what I try to remember that excitement of I want to do well, not, oh, I want to show all the knowledge I have. Well, that's cool.
Uh,
We understand you have knowledge. That's why you were hired as a judge.
yeah.
Someone,
I remember we go to the BOA things or whatever. And then on the bus home, they would play the tape, from the judge. And thankfully back then there was no profanity. That was only from the director. But
that's why
yeah,
I always waited till I had the next class day because let's face it, after a long weekend with contests and football games, especially marching band,
right.
they're a little tired. Like, oh, okay. Well, let's re-energize. So we're pulling up chairs. Let's listen all together. And by that point, I've heard all the tapes. But let's look at this. This score's
Mm,
lower. This person appeared to enjoy it more. Why did they enjoy it? Why do we get
mm,
more credit over here? Well, who knows? The five bands before us could have done that one thing that bugged that judge more, and we did
yeah,
it better. So we get a better score. But their scores were all lower because they were being bugged. You don't
right.
you just don't know. So you
Well, I
kind
mean,
of
it's art.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
subjective.
yeah, it is, and it should be. And I want to go back to your assistant, the assistant director, virtual assistant director
Mhm.
service.
Assistantdirector.com.
It's so hard when you're just put in a position like a band director. You're not taught how to buy things. I mean, and you're not to be able to say, okay, I have a $10,000, $20,000 budget. What do I do with it? How do I how do I make sure I'm not getting ripped off or I'm
Oh,
getting what I need is not easy. And
yeah. I would say at
yeah,
least a third of the calls I get for uniforms, hey, I've never bought a uniform before. What do I do?
yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, guess what? I've made a uniform with every company. I work for a uniform company. I understand this. We'll talk through. Let me find out what you need, what you're looking for, how you're being funded, and we can help
Yeah,
you out. So
right.
it's to me, it's more of just all the VADs, all the virtual assistant directors are people that are big names in the performing arts community. They've a lot of
Yeah.
experience, different aspects. So it's, what do you need? So if you go to the webpage
Yeah.
and click around, like, I want someone who's close to me. Well, where we live is listed on our list. Or if it's, I need a percussion person. Well, great. Here's 2 percussion people. Click out their page, read their bios and what they're working with, and see who you want to work with.
Right. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be just you're calling a company and whoever picks up the phone is it. It's
Right.
been my company for a while. I just added more people. Like, hey, whoever you like to work with. So when someone calls, like, well, there's no one in my area. Great. What do you need? I got you.
And the guard closet, that website is that you have consignment or
We do consignment and
yeah.
news. But all my VAD people also work with Guard Closet. So it's and they work directly with them. They're
Yeah.
contract employees with them. And that's all consignment stuff as well as new stuff. So all the color guard shoes, gloves, uniform racks, garment bags, all those kind of things are done through DSI Style Plus, all the major vendors on that side
Right.
there with Guard Closet. So it allows ease. And there's also a little crossover with like shirts. You can do shirts with 3 of my different companies. So when someone calls in like, well, I want to do t-shirts. Great. What do you need? Get all the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on what I'm hearing, there's 2 different vendors I'm going to send you quotes for, and you let me know what you want to work with.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to do a performance slot for the marching band show. Okay, I've got several options. We start
Right.
talking through budget. I did this yesterday with somebody. We're talking through budget. I'm like, okay, based on your budget, this is what I'm going to suggest going. So I'm going to start off here with this quote.
Yeah, the budget. Yeah, because I've been in positions where like I work for a company and then you're told, well, this is the budget, and then you don't know. It just takes so much time to do the research to figure out what it should cost to do things. And then of course, and then you're talking about buying stuff for a organization. It's not like going out, to a store and buying yourself a shirt. It's a totally different buying process. So yeah,
every district can be different. So understanding what that is, I mean, and everyone's fundraising all the time for all the things that aren't being provided with their district. So for me, I'm sure that whatever you get, you're buying is get the best value for your money. So it's not about the cheapest price, because cheap is cheap. That's why we don't say
exactly.
cheap.
Yeah.
It's like, what is your budget? If I know your budget, I can say this is below your budget, in your budget, and above your budget. Here are the ideas.
Yeah, right.
And then you might say, you know what? That seems worth the extra money. Or, oh, I can actually get this cheaper than I thought I would. That would work. Great. If that's the quality, if that quality works for you at that price, you can go under your budget.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris.
Thank you for your time.